I remember the sound before I saw it, that deep, grinding rumble that made the coffee in my mug tremble. The vibration rattled through the kitchen window like a warning from the earth itself. Another cement truck, another violation, another insult. It was 7:14 a.m. on a Wednesday when I finally decided I'd had enough. See, that bridge wasn't just wood and bolts to me. My father built it by hand back in the 80s, a sturdy, two-lane private bridge that arched over a small creek separating my property from the main road. He'd poured every ounce of sweat and love into it. When he passed away, he left the house, and the bridge, to me, along with one simple rule: respect the weight limit. 5 tons, tops, he'd written in his notes. Anything heavier, and you'll crack her spine. For years, everyone respected that. Neighbors asked permission before crossing. Delivery drivers parked on the other side and walked. But that all changed when the new HOA president, Karen McDowell, took charge. She was one of those people who treated a neighborhood like her personal kingdom. Her hair was always perfectly sprayed into submission, her clipboard practically an extension of her arm, and her voice, well, if arrogance had a frequency, hers could shatter glass. It started small, a few landscapers using the bridge without asking. Then moving trucks. Then, one morning, the first cement mixer. I came out of my house yelling as the driver rumbled across. "Hey, that bridge is private property. You're gonna break it." The driver shrugged. "HOA said it's fine," said the road's public access. Public access. That phrase burned like acid. I stormed into the HOA office that afternoon, bridge photos and deed papers in hand. Karen sat behind her desk, tapping a pen against her teeth like she owned the world. "Ms. McDowell," I began, "that bridge is on my property. You don't have the right to send trucks over it." She smiled without looking up. "The HOA board decided it's in the best interest of the community to allow construction vehicles to use the fastest route. Your bridge happens to be the most direct access." "My bridge is private," I repeated. "There's a sign, and I've got legal." "Then sue us," she interrupted, eyes finally flicking up, smug and cold. "But until then, we'll continue to use community infrastructure as needed." She said community infrastructure like she'd just declared my father's legacy a public restroom. That night, I stood by the bridge with a flashlight, tracing the wood planks, feeling the subtle bowing in the center. The beams groaned with each passing gust. Another truck or two, and it'd splinter. I knew I couldn't wait for a lawsuit. I needed to make them stop, and I had to make sure they never dared to try again. So, I set a trap. It took me 2 weeks to prepare. First, I installed hidden trail cameras along the trees near the bridge, small, motion-activated ones that blended perfectly with the bark. I wanted proof. Then, I posted fresh, private property, 5-ton limit, trespassers will be liable, signs on both sides. Next, I called in a favor from an old friend of my dad's, a retired structural engineer named Gus. He'd helped build the original bridge and knew its anatomy better than anyone. Together, we came up with a plan that was equal parts genius and poetic justice. We reinforced the visible parts of the bridge, replaced some beams, repainted them, made it look solid and safe. But underneath, we added a few deliberate weaknesses, removable bolts in key joints, a fake support beam that looked real but was hollowed out. It wouldn't cause a catastrophic collapse, but it would definitely expose any overweight vehicle for what it was doing. "Won't this be dangerous?" Gus asked as we worked one late night, the sound of crickets echoing in the humid air. "Not if they obey the signs," I said. "But if they don't, well, I want the world to see exactly who's breaking what." He chuckled softly. "Your dad would be proud of you." That made my throat tighten. By the 3rd week, I was ready. I didn't have to wait long. Saturday morning. 9:32 a.m. The roar came again. Another cement truck, logo of McDowell Development on the side, Karen's husband's company. The driver didn't even slow down as he turned onto the bridge. I watched from the window, camera feed open on my tablet, recording every second. Halfway across, there was a loud crack. Then another. The truck wobbled, tilted slightly to one side, and froze. One of the fake support beams had split clean through. The driver jumped out, cursing, staring at the half-sagging deck beneath his wheels. The truck was stuck, too heavy to move forward or back. Within 20 minutes, Karen herself showed up, red-faced, barking into her phone. I could almost hear her through the glass. "This is your fault," she screamed at the driver. "You should have known." I stepped outside, phone recording. "My fault," I said loudly, "because I told you 5 times not to send trucks over my bridge." Because I put up signs. Because I warned your office in writing. Karen spun toward me, face blotched pink. You deliberately sabotaged the bridge. I laughed, incredulous. Sabotaged? Lady, you trespassed. I told you this wasn't community property. I held up the deed papers. Everything from that oak tree to the creek is mine. Including the bridge, she faltered, glancing around at the gathering neighbors. Dozens of them had come out to watch the drama unfold. Phones were out, cameras were rolling. That's when I played my final card. I've got trail cam footage, I said, lifting my tablet. Every truck you've sent for the last 3 months. Every weight limit sign ignored. Every one of your husband's cement deliveries. You've been trespassing, damaging private property, and endangering public safety. Her mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. I turned toward the crowd. If anyone here's been wondering why traffic's been backing up or why the bridge has been creaking, now you know. The driver, still pale, muttered, "Lady, you told us it was public access." Karen's face crumpled. Within hours, the HOA board was in chaos. Karen called an emergency meeting. I showed up, recording again. The board tried to deflect, to minimize it, to call it a misunderstanding. But when I played the footage of their trucks rolling across the bridge, time-stamped, license plates visible, even they couldn't defend her. By the end of that week, I'd filed a formal complaint with the county. Turns out, she hadn't gotten any legal clearance to treat my bridge as HOA property. In fact, the HOA wasn't even allowed to authorize commercial traffic on private roads. The county inspector visited, took one look at the bridge, and told her husband's company they'd be footing the repair bill, every penny. $78,000 worth of repair and restoration, plus damages for unauthorized use. When I handed Karen the bill, she looked like she might collapse. "This isn't over," she hissed. "Oh, it's very over," I said quietly. "And next time you think you can trample over someone's property, remember what happens when the ground gives way." I rebuilt the bridge that fall. This time, with reinforced steel beams and concrete supports. Strong enough to last another 50 years, and strong enough to keep people like her off for good. But that wasn't the end. Word spread fast through the neighborhood. Karen resigned 2 months later, for personal reasons. Her husband's company lost its next 3 development contracts. Apparently, word of their trespass scandal reached the city board. Neighbors who used to avoid me started waving again. One even brought over a pie and said, "You know, we always thought she was overstepping, but none of us had the guts to say anything." It was satisfying, not because I'd won, but because justice had finally landed where it belonged. Still, sometimes, when I stand at the edge of the new bridge at dusk, I swear I can hear the faint echo of those cement trucks rumbling in the distance, like ghosts from another life. But now, the bridge doesn't tremble. It stands firm, just like me.